Okay, thank you, and welcome again. So we're going to get right into our agenda tonight. And the first thing we're going to start with is our announcements of reportable action out of closed session, and our Vice President Butler will make that announcement.
The board did meet in closed session this evening on 2 items. The first item with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session, public employees discipline dismissal release. It was information only to the board. The second item with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Barbara Varenkovich, attorney Dennis Oliver Kelly, employees organization Novato Federation of Teachers, otherwise known as NFT. That was information only to the board.
All right, thank you. Our next item is approval of the agenda. So to the Board of Trustees, we have the agenda in front of you, and unless anyone wants to reorder or change, add, or subtract, I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for today.
Thank you, Trustee Aguila. I have a first and a second by Trustee Butler. Thank you. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda? We have 6 in the affirmative and 1 absent. Got to check my math. Okay. All right, thanks. We're going to move on to approval our consent agenda. You have the consent agenda. There are no additional addendums presented, so I will take a motion to accept the consent agenda, or if there are items you would wish to pull or discuss, please let me know. So no items to pull. So I have a motion from Trustee Milrick to...
So I would like to actually
Okay.
hear about a status on the kitchen project out at PV and the work at Sinaloa. If Mr. He's in the room, Willard would give us a quick status on those 2, and then I would move the whole agenda, if that's... Because
Okay,
those
so-
2 items are covered as change orders.
So procedurally, what we're going to do, what I'd
How
like
you
to
want
do,
it.
first time I check with the board, make sure that we got to identify those letters.
Item F,
Okay, F.
and I'm looking for the Sinaloa.
Is I the other one for?
Yes. So if you want me to pull the 2, then...
Yeah,
Okay.
let's, I'm
I'll
going to put
pull item
announce,
F and pull item I and move the rest of the agenda, the rest of the consent items.
so are there any other items that other trustees would like to pull and discuss? Okay, so seeing none, then I have a motion from Trustee Miller to accept tonight's consent agenda without items F or I. Do I have a second for that? Seconded by Trustee Jacobson. So all those in favor of approving the amended consent agenda, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. And at this time, I'm going to call our facilities director forward to address items 14F and I. And Trustee Miller, you will let him know if there's anything specific that...
No, I just drove by the sites, and I know they're not available to the students just yet, so I thought it would get a status. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the first school site would be, we'll go with Sinaloa. So we did finish with part of the project. Obviously, you saw the exterior siding is completed with new stucco and painted, and new signage is up. A couple things are back ordered. You've all probably heard about the exterior water fountains. They got delayed. They will be installed about the middle of September. We've since been providing water stations for the students below and at the upper campus. The work is pretty much condensed to just the building 400, which is the gym. The gym is still gutted, and the bathrooms and the kind of covered porch area where the students eat lunch is still part of the construction zone while they finish the last bit of work up there. And the kitchen, they're pouring the slab next week. And as soon as that's done, all the underground work's done, you'll start seeing a lot more progress with the construction of the walls and the outfitting of the new kitchen. Due to some logistics delays, we still anticipate the gym being completed probably near the end of October, and the kitchen most likely will be done sometime middle of December.
So that's item I.
So that takes you through the end, you said the middle of December is when it'll be, the
Yes.
contractor will be off-site? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Unless something else gets delayed, which hoping we're done with that. I know. Knocking on wood.
Don't wash your mouth out
No,
with
I
soap.
don't want to hear that. So following up on that, so I know you said the gym's not done until October, but are the kids going to be able to dress down for PE at least?
Yes,
And-
the locker rooms are open and fully usable. They have the same lockers they had last year. We have additional, about 90 new lockers that are coming in. They, of course, got delayed. They will be in, I think, sometime in the middle of September, end of September. But the locker rooms are completely usable. We're working with the PE staff to get some of the supplies and equipment they use that are stored in other places not accessible to make sure they have availability for all that stuff. And the music room and the band room are open as well and used by students. The band room is used by students for music, and I call it the choir room, not sure what it's officially called, but that is where the fan staff is prepping and serving food until the new kitchen's complete.
And the food service is fully functional at this point?
Correct. They bring stuff that's prepped and heated off-site, and then they serve it a couple different.
Right, it's just a serving location. We have a brand-new kitchen on Olive Street that does the prep work. Right, okay. So, but their students are able to receive their meals
Correct.
in a timely way as of today, Tuesday?
Absolutely. As of the
Okay.
first day of school, they are. able to
Okay,
get
good,
food.
okay.
And then the other sites, there's no other questions with Sinaloa. At Pleasant Valley, we are still working hard on the kitchen. We did have a few hiccups over the summer of some unexpected things as we were excavating the new kitchen area. But that work has been contained to just the multipurpose room. It is currently closed for use by students. We are, as a matter of fact, out of the ground, and they were drywalling today, which is a great sign in the kitchen area, and things go faster. Unfortunately, we got an update today on the kitchen appliances that were delayed, and I think that kitchen should be completed with the exception of the 4-burner gas stove by the middle of October, end of October, and then the stove arrives in December. But we can operate a kitchen, fully operate a kitchen, and serve food to students without the stove.
Thank you for the update.
Trustee Gaston, you had a question on F in Pleasant Valley?
Yeah, so how are they doing for food services? I mean, can they at least use that room even though the stove isn't there I know we used to have food brought in from San Ramon, so can it be done, at least the space being used even though they can't prep food or do whatever
So right now, they're serving food in the other, I don't know the name
I
of the
know,
room.
it's the
kind of behind the library. So they're prepping food and serving it out of there. We're not able to serve food out of the multipurpose room as of yet because all of our stocking of materials go in the kitchen is out on the floor. We're hoping to open that up sometime in October, hopefully the earlier part of October as we get closer to finishing the kitchen. And then once the kitchen's finished, minus the stove, it will be fully operational and used.
Okay,
usable.
that's my question. Even though the stove isn't there and you can't
Correct.
use it to its full capacity, you could at least have it.
Right, most of the meals, as our fans director has instructed me, is heating. There's not much actual cooking from a raw product. He is trying to experiment with that, so obviously that we'll use it throughout the year, but initially he will be able to open the kitchen without the stove. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions on these two items on the consent agenda?
Do you want me to move both items F and I as a single motion so we
I
can
would.
be done with this?
I would.
Thank you, sir. I so move.
Okay, and
Second.
seconded by trustee Aguila, and I certainly would ask patience of the community as we do our best to finish up these projects that were delayed due to the supply chain issues and other difficulties related to the pandemic. So, all right, all those in favor? Is 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, so the consent agenda is adopted, and I'll go back to our next agenda item, which I'm sure it's important. In fact, I know it's important. Announcements from the board and the superintendent. All right, it's soapbox times, guys. No, just kidding. Trustee Miller, would you
I
like
was able to do back-to-school nights. That's great. It's trying to come back from COVID and get all those smiling faces on campus and excited to see their friends and start the process of in-person education for real from the beginning of the year. It's great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Aguila, any?
Yeah, just thank you to all the teachers that are doing their best to come back to school, have the kids feel welcome. We already had some hiccups, but I think things are going well. We've also had positive emails saying thank you for all you do, and so looking forward to the school year.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Jacobs.
I went to a wonderful workshop with Education Services about PBE that was very informative. I had the pleasure of meeting with Angela Williams, new last name, to talk about special education and the ways in which that department will be operating this year, which was really informative as well. And that's it. It's been a great start to the year so far.
Great. Okay. Trustee Gasson.
I want to start by saying how grateful I am for our teachers and staff. I know it's been a real crazy, I don't know how many days. My kids are already worn out and tired, so I can imagine how hard between the construction at some sites and then also the anxious parents because we've got construction sewage lines being redone on Center, which impacts several schools. And then I was coming back from Novato Highway and that direction, and there's also construction there. So as everything else, we've got construction in our schools and then on the streets as well. So it's been pretty crazy. But I know it's going to be a great year, and we're all looking forward to it. Back to school nights have been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying that, and I have a couple more this week and next week, so looking forward to those. I also wanted to just put out a reminder to join your PTAs at each of the schools. A lot of great work being done by the PTA, and the more we get membership, the more strength we have as a district and then to the 16th district so that we can advocate for our kids at the state level. And then I didn't have it all pulled together yet, but wanted to let everyone know I am collaborating with the Safe Routes to School and Marin Bikes to get helmets for elementary kids who don't have them. So some kids will have bikes, but they don't actually have helmets, and then there's a lot of kids that with scooters without helmets, and so we're working on a fundraiser for that. It'll likely be a GoFundMe, and details will be coming out shortly on how we can support them in getting those kids helmets.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Butler.
Yep. The same as our fellow trustees, and thanking our staff for opening up our schools and getting everything up and running. It's a lot to do, and I know it's always down to the wire, especially when we have construction going on some of the sites. So thank you to our staff for cleaning and getting the classrooms, and everybody chipped in, parents chipped in to get everything up and running. So really appreciate that. I was able to get to the MSA orientation this past last week. San Ramon back to school, Rancho, Loma Verde, and I was able to get to Nova this morning, which is our independent study program, to their back to school. And everything's been great. A good turnout at each back to school night. It's great to see everybody back on campus, parents, and some kids did trickle on, even though it's a parents only event, but our teachers are doing a great job in getting the information out to our parents and getting them informed on just what the school year is going to look like. So.
Okay. Well, I certainly want to share an expression of gratitude to the community. Obviously, all of our employees and our volunteer parents and community members that help get the school year started. It's a challenge, and I think that from talking to parents and community members and some administrators, and I think we're pulling it off to the best of our ability. Been some rough spots, but I think a lot of it had to do with sort of coming back online to a new normal or getting back to a regular school year. So we just want to, again, express appreciation and gratitude for the work that everyone's doing to get our schools up and running. And I'm looking forward to a good school year. And I think I'll just let you guys know that I did meet with the School Fuel at their board meeting on your behalf, and they're adding a few board members and planning their year. They are optimistic that things are going to go well and that they will be able to continue to in fact, increase grants maybe to our teachers on their different projects, et cetera. So that's a positive. And we'll now turn it over to the superintendent for any announcements.
I first want to do a shout out to Mike Willard and to Tony Albini, I visited Sinaloa Music Room where the fans was, and this music room was on the other side. And I came back and I said, help. And Mike stepped up immediately and talked with the contractor and got people to help clean that room out. It's night and day. Mike, did you get to see it today? It's amazing, the transformation. The guys did just fabulous work today. There's more work to do. I think we filled 2 dumpsters at least. But the food service will now have a really good space to work, and I was very happy about that. The new music teacher for Sinaloa has been helped with the cleanup and just saying, we can throw this away, don't throw that away, and whatever, and that was good. But I think he's going to start teaching tomorrow or the next day, so that will be good too. So that was a huge undertaking, and they stepped up immediately, and I'm very grateful. So wanted to share that. The district SEAC has their first meeting on September 15th. That's our special ed advisory, so that's great. You all talked about back to school night, so Pleasant Valley, Hamilton, and Lou Sutton are this week. Nova was this morning, and Deb went to that. Thank goodness, we were at Cabinet. And Sinaloa and Nevada High are next week. As you know, we still have openings, and HR has been doing some excellent work trying to just keep everything going. The positions are all open until filled. Our special ed are the most challenging to fill, and they are open. And all of the special ed teams and Angela and her team have been trying to make sure that kids are served. It is a very, very challenging situation, to put it mildly. San Marin has 2.4 that has not been filled, but the kids have been distributed in other classes, but the positions are open when they come. We will then redistribute, I guess. Very hard to do with the master schedule. Mark, you have 3.0 or 2.8 still not filled? You're up to 4 FTE? Oh, goodness. Okay, well, yeah, and they've distributed everyone as well. So there have been some challenges. I'm telling you, the staff, I couldn't be more proud of the administrators, the teachers, the classified. Everybody pulled together to get this opening to happen, and it was extremely smooth. But we are still advertising. The Blue Ribbon Outreach Committee is doing 2 farmers markets and talking to the community. If you know Lou Castellucci, you know she's amazing, and she is moving to work at Nevada High, right? Did you hire her? I think you hired her, Mark. Maybe you don't know, but I think she's getting yeah, maybe that's it. Anyway, she's fabulous, and so she took her tax bill to the farmers market, and she was showing people, see, this is really not all NUSD. This is part of COM, and this is what it looks like, and this is what you'll have to pay. She was hysterical at the meeting, I'm just telling you. So anyway, she's on for August 30th and the 13th. So is Mike Jolly and who else? And Jerry Peters. And Jennifer Goldfinger, yeah, all the community members that have been here a long time and are just doing great work for us. Now, I'm just going to say this. I think one of our student board members just walked in and back out because they're not due here till next week, but he looked darling. So, yeah, was he just thinking he was supposed to be here tonight? Okay, is he Nevada High? Yes. Okay, great. And you told him, I was watching you. Yeah, okay, great. That was great. As you know, Alex Perez has taken another job, and he's going to be doing telecommuting from home. It's better for his family. He has told us that he would be willing to consult. We need him, and so we're hoping that will continue. So that was really great. And then the STEAM program at San Jose, the after-school program, has almost 150 kids in it now. So we're really excited about that. That's getting going. It started yesterday. The 22nd was the first day. So I think there's lots of really great things going, lots of people all working in the same direction on behalf of kids, and I'm very proud of everyone, and I thank you all for being part of opening day, part of the back to school nights. It makes all the difference when we're at the schools, then we can see for ourselves what's going on, and I think that's important. So, okay, thanks.
All right, that's a lot. So our next item, 10, this is a presentation, and we were going to recognize our crossing guards, but the individuals that were going to be here tonight had a scheduling change and weren't able to make it, so we're going to have to recognize our crossing guards without crossing guards. But I think it's important to recognize them. I as a driver in the morning going to work, I see how some of our community members want to drive and want to run stop signs and want to get where they're going without taking young children or even teenagers crossing the street into account. And I think without our crossing guards, things would be a lot more difficult and unsafe. So I think it's a healthy, wise investment to have crossing guards, and I wish they were here so that we could show them our appreciation. So that's it. But next time you see a crossing guard, smile and say, "Give me that stop sign. Go ahead, I'll wait." Trustee Aguila.
And since we're thanking people, I just like to thank Dr. Drury for the great job that she did at Nevada High School with all the teachers there, just acknowledging them and giving them the energy and the recognition that they deserve for all the work that they've done. So thank you. That was a great event, and everybody wore. I love that blue T-shirts, and so it was a great event. And so I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Maria, for bringing that up. Okay, so let's move on to non-agenda public comment, and I will say that I've been informed we have no non-agenda public comment. So that brings us to item 12, which is public hearing, and this is going to be regarding intent to dedicate and convey an easement to the Novato Sanitary District. We will be passing resolution. We hope to be passing resolution number 2, 2022-23. So I have to open official public hearing, and we will hear comments on this issue. Seeing no comments, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, or should we? Yeah, I'm going to close the public hearing. All right, and then that'll bring us to item 13, which is a board discussion action item A. This is to adopt the resolution that we just held a public hearing on, authorizing the conveyance of an easement to the Novato Sanitary District out at our Hamilton parcel, and our Chief Financial Officer, Lois Standing, will begin by presenting.
I'm going to recuse myself again. Okay.
And Trustee Butler, who lives within 10 feet of the parcel, is required to, of the sewer line, no, I'm kidding, of the property line, to be fair. She'll be back. But she is obligated to be absent, to remove herself from the meeting as we discuss it. So, go ahead.
Okay, so we brought this to you last meeting as the preliminary. It has to come twice. Nothing has changed, although Mike Woolard is here to answer the specific questions that you had regarding our input into the easement and how it was chosen with location. Nothing has changed in the resolution. It's as presented before, but I'm going to let Mike talk about the process that got us to this point with the agency and in North Bay Children's Center.
So really quick, it was a very collaborative effort, and definitely wasn't dictated to us. We worked hand in hand for probably months on figuring out how to best to do this. As you know, this parcel is old Hamilton base, and I don't want to tell you how many skeletons are buried out here. As far as old utilities, as far as old utilities, bad choice of words. There's a lot of old abandoned things and systems out there. So the water district and the wastewater district very interested in what we do out here. And of course, as you all know, the whole parcel, including most of C Street from probably here all the way up, we own as part of the parcel. And of course, utilities love to run utilities along roads because they're easy access, easy to get to. We, per some direction from the board earlier, elected not to do that. So what I want to show you is the red line is basically the very edge of our parcel next to, forgot the contractor that owns it for development. It's privately owned for development for some, or was for some housing units. I'm not sure where that stands. So that's just on the inside of our property line along the fence, and it goes straight across C Street, and it connects on the other side near Landham Village to an existing sanitary line. That's what the sanitary district was one of their acceptable solutions for how they could connect to the sanitary sewer system. And just, I don't mean to get ahead, but I know that the North Bay Children's Center is being instructed by the Water District, Northman Water District, who's in charge of the recycled or purple pipe water. They're making them install that line as well. We're working on the easement, so you'll see this again for that. We're working with them on location, but I know that Main Gate Drive is currently irrigated by purple pipe that the city installed during that initial project. And the yellow line indicates where most likely we'll probably have an easement for them to come across our property, which is on the charter school, to connect to the North Bay Children's Center new building. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions or concerns about granting the easement? And it doesn't look like it, so I think we're in good shape then, because I think we did come up with the solution that makes the most sense. Obviously, shortest path along a property line. There's not a lot of options out there because I don't know if condemned is the right word, but all the former air-based sewer lines that are, some are in use, are illegal and can't be used on new development. So this is a good way to get started. And as an owner of the property or representing the ownership of the property, any easement I'm going to grant, I want to make sure it isn't going to tie my hands down the road on future development that I'd be interested in. So I think we've come up with a pretty good plan, and we can know that the child center will be able to flush their toilets. So, Trustee Gasson.
So I'm thinking about that whole process and the impact. I mean, it's fine with me, but do they have an anticipated timeline in terms of when all that will be done?
I know that the easements are required first to be approved by the district before they can actually start construction. I think within a couple of months, they wanted to start breaking ground to get this rolling. They're anxious to go. You might.
I know that they've been in discussion with the charter school because their work will directly affect the functioning of the charter school. And at this point, they're negotiating perhaps turning off services Thanksgiving or sometime when there's a break so that this charter school won't be as impacted.
So it won't be like a 5-month project or something. It's just
Well, the whole project will probably take quite a while, but the connecting of the sewer,
that's what I
no.
mean, that
Yeah.
part of, okay, thank you.
I think maybe the only thing to bring to note would be that all of the neighbors in the area know that this construction is happening on behalf of the North Bay Children's Center. That is their middle lot, and they obviously need an easement in and out and et cetera. But as far as the people at Lanham Village, we're under the assumption that they've been properly notified by North Bay Children's Center as well as the sanitary district that this line is going to be going across and tapping into probably their main line. So not our responsibility, but I'm hopeful that that's the case, or we'll certainly be in a position to explain that should anyone inquire going forward. Okay, any more questions about it, comments? Then I need a motion to adopt the resolution. I have a first from Trustee Gasson, seconded by Trustee Nell. And all those in favor? 5-4, 1 absent, and 1, let's not excuse, abstain. Yeah.
Thank you much.
And thank you very much. Okay, we are going to go on to the next item, which is 13. This is a discussion action item. It is B. It is approval of the Student Code of Conduct and Student Discipline and Intervention Matrix. And I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent, who will be joined by Mike Saisi.
Great, that's a lot of words, right? So what happened a year ago when I arrived, that there were comments coming to me that we're using all different kinds of, processes, suspension, no suspension, restorative practice, no restorative practice, whatever. And so we started working with the assistant principals in 6 through 12 for the first semester, and I asked Dora Dome to join us because everything that we do around student behavior is based on education code and board policy. So we realized that we didn't have something that was comprehensive, and so we worked for a few months and then realized that we really need to make this a K-12. So we had a subcommittee then, and so some of the people are here, which I'm so grateful for. So Lori, and could you just stand if I call your name? Lori and Mira and Whitney. Mike was representing middle school. Whitney's not here tonight. Mark Brewer represented Novato High, and Shauna, you can stand up for her. Shauna, thank you, Jen, the principal of San Marin High School, represented the high school. And so we met with Doris for several months. And the reason Mira and Lori were selected is because they have strong background in PBIS because they did it in their previous schools. So that was a real good leadership opportunity for them and for us to hear what really should go into this document. So you guys can be seated, and thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So what we're going to do is just talk a little bit. I'm going to try to just give you a few little snippets, and then Mike's going to show you what it actually looks like for a third grade or a sixth grade or a high school, just so that you can see what our choices are and what we might want to do to balance and not go all restorative practice or all suspensions, but what is the thing that we want to do to change and prevent anything from happening and give the kids opportunities to have behavior that is acceptable. So if you could just flip to the next one. This is the, So what you have here on your first page is just the table of contents. We didn't have a table of contents before, and I think it's really important to have a reference, be able to have, so when teachers see it, when parents see it, when staff sees it, it's all in the same place, and it's all based on education code. So the first section is really a philosophy statement, and then the first section is responsibilities and expectations, and that's a lot of meat and potatoes of what the whole document is. The code of conduct, what are the violations, what are the consequences, what are the aligned ed codes, and then other considerations for us to consider when we're dealing with a variety of issues. Then you see that we've got level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, so that depending on what the violation is, then we align what we think is appropriate. And all the ed codes are listed for you, which is really great to have it aligned with whatever the infraction is. Then the actual student discipline intervention matrix outlines all the tiered interventions that we're going to do. So that's a really good one too, because, and what we're going to do this year is to use it and then maybe add or subtract or see what's working for us. Because this is really something that mostly the assistant principals at the secondary and the principals themselves at the elementary will be dealing with. Although we know that teachers can suspend from their classrooms, but they have to suspend for suspendable offenses, and that's why this is an important thing to review with the teachers. On the next page, I just want to do a quick definition of what are Tier 1 supports. And so if you look on the right of the graphic, you can see that PBIS is what we're just getting started with, and the training is starting in September, which is great. All of our teachers will be trained. And it's really about positive reinforcement and recognition of all students. What are we doing for all students? Not just some, but for all, so that we have systems in place that kids know what they're supposed to do, adults know what we're supposed to do, and we all are respectful of each other. We really want, this is the area that was really an area of inconsistency, and it's now the consequences. What are the consequences? Are they restorative practices? Are they restitution? What are they? And so that we can start identifying those. We really know that we have to have effective supervision, so we're going to want our classified staff also that are doing campus supervision trained, and then effective classroom management. And so for our new teachers particularly, I think it's really an important thing. That's always a hard thing when you're a brand new teacher, is to get the management systems in place and have everybody understand what the expectations are. And so Karen Fremantle is coordinating our new teacher support called the induction program, which we're required to, and the board approved the costs for us at our last board meeting. So you know that each of our new teachers will have a mentor working with them. We're trying to figure out right now what we're doing with the teachers that do not have their full credentials yet, that are on internships, because they're not eligible for the induction program. So we're trying to, Karen's trying to design something so that we have support systems for them too. But classroom management, just know, is something that's very, very important when you first start out. And then collaboration with families. So we really want to make sure the families are it's partners about this, because we know that if there's a behavior at school, something could have come from home, and if there's a behavior at home, something could have come from school. And we need to go forward together on this as much as possible. So Mike's going to review a couple things with you so you can see how the matrix works and how it will be utilized by the principals or assistant principals.
All right, thank you, Dr. Derby. Good evening, and like Dr. Derby said, I'm going to go over the examples that are in your packet. I'm going to specifically target middle school because that's what I dealt with as an administrator. But if you notice in your packet, it has Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for primary grades, so K through 3 and then 4 through 6. The infraction that we're using as the example is 48900A1, which is attempt to cause or threaten to cause physical injury. So as an example, for middle school, it could be really for any grade level, but this is where a student might get into a fight with another student and they're pushing or maybe hitting each other. The options that are available for administrators to use as far as interventions or consequences are listed under Tier 2. So it could be, parent-student conference, which you would pretty much do at any level, peer mediation, conflict resolution, all the way down to behavior contracts and restorative practices. That would be true also in grades 4 through 6. If it escalated, so if we had a student who maybe got into a second fight throughout the course of the year and we needed to go to Tier 3 interventions, those would be a lot of what Tier 2 is doing. So for example, meeting with the parent is something you would always do, but maybe it is a referral to a student study team or referral to school counseling as kind of a next step in that process. On the next page, yes.
I noticed that there were different colors, and I could not figure out what they are.
Yeah.
So why is
So
stuff
those
purple and red?
that's a great question. So those were late additions. So some things that we added in after we had already created the draft.
Okay.
And so we just added those in, and we just noted that they were late additions by adding them as a different color.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what card flip system is?
So not being an elementary
Sorry.
person, but I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, elementary principals, that card flip system means like you did something you shouldn't have done, and so you have to flip your card, and that means that you're in trouble of some kind, but maybe you guys can explain it better. That was it? All right, I got it.
Yeah, it's a red, yellow, and green is what it used to be. Is that what, I mean, but I don't think people are using that much anymore. But it was in the documents that we saw. But I didn't like it. I mean, I remember using it, so that's how long ago it was. And it was like public shaming, and that's not what we want to do. But the documents that we looked at, the samples that Dora brought us, had that in it. But that might be something we want to take out. My guess is no one's using it. That's my guess. Is that correct? Julia, are you? Yeah, for a very long time, right? So that might be something we want to take out. So
Yeah,
thanks
maybe
for
we could
pointing
get
out.
rid of it if it's one, not something we're using, and two, possibly shaming.
Yeah, no shaming. That's not the goal.
All right, so on the next page is the 7, 8, Tier 2, Tier 3, and then 9 through 12, so the high school. The 7th and 8th grade is enlarged because that's the one that I would deal with if I was the assistant principal, for example, at Sinaloa Middle School. If I had a student that got into a fight with another student, in this Tier 2 intervention, there's some of these that you would just do. Parent conferencing, due process, making sure you got witness statements, documenting in an ARIES. But then there's a number of different items that are at your disposal, kind of depending on how things were handled. So for example, you may do conflict resolution or peer mediation. You may do restorative justice, which is normally how we have handled things in the past in a first-time offense. Or it could be a 1 to 3 day suspension. Just kind of depends. And then if it escalated to tier 3, meaning this was maybe the second time that this happened for a student, it could be a referral to a student study team. It could be a referral to school counseling. It could be social probation. There's a number of 45 days up there, but that just would mean that students wouldn't be able to participate in school activities after school or sporting events or anything of that nature. Up to a 3 to 5 day home suspension. And then there's other things on there as well as a no fight contract. We called it in the middle school a no contact contract. So those are all things that are possibilities for administrators when they're dealing with these situations with a 48900A1. Yes.
With the different suspension options, are there certain severities of incident that warrant that, or is it at the discretion of the administrator?
I believe it's at the discretion of the administrator, but I can just tell you from my point of view when I was assistant principal at Sinaloa, there were different levels of incidents. So for example, there were some times where we would have two students that were starting to get into a fight and they were starting to push each other, but nothing really major happened. I would deal with that differently than I would if two students got into a fight and they were punching each other and it was going on for a while. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's kind of the difference. Yes.
So I know it's within the actual document, but is there a standard no-fight contract that is adopted?
I had never, well, not to say I haven't heard of a no-fight contract. I've never seen a no-fight contract. I'm only familiar with no-contact contracts where students they're signing an agreement that they're going to stay away from each other. So I'm not sure about
I
a
like
no-fight.
that better.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think if
change
we're,
that language.
I like it the other way, but I just think if we have something rather than having every school site do something different or have a different, I think if we had like a template or something, that would be great.
Yes.
Mike, this is really interesting, but it looks to me like this is, the example you're following at least is we got an individual who is progressively becoming more and more difficult for some reason. But it's also true on our campuses, periodically we have groups of students organized however you want to call them, gangs, or maybe that's the mental model, but that work in concert with some kind of goal, group goal. Are you going to be able to speak to that issue here, or is this just going to be around individual student discipline?
That's a good question.
Both. It
Okay.
will be both.
Okay.
You know,
I'll
we're
wait
going to
and-
apply everything to everyone that
Okay.
is here in this document because it's allowable through Ed Code.
Okay, I'm
The
thinking of the hard
interventions-
problems.
But the interventions may be different depending on what the offense is, but whether it's a group of kids doing something or individual kids or two kids, we will be dealing with what the offense is and what their background is and how many offenses they've had in the past and, you know, what we've done in terms of interventions before we provide additional resources or take different kind of action with suspension.
And these are disciplines that apply to students that we
All
have a
students.
jurisdiction over.
Right.
So if something happens off campus, I know we have responsibilities for students as they're coming to school or coming from school to home. Once they get home and then go to the grocery store, that's not a school issue, that's a family, community issue.
Absolutely.
But in that period when we have some responsibility, there's a chance for students in other districts to participate. Maybe it's close enough to beginning and end of school, that doesn't happen very frequently.
Yeah, but lunchtime is at open campuses, we have lunchtime
Okay,
issues as
okay.
well that we have to address.
Okay,
So
I'm
that's an
just,
important point.
yeah, okay, I don't have an answer. I'm sitting here, in an air-conditioned room. Everything looks fine for me.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah,
Question.
I'm done. Thank you, sir.
Okay. The next example is a 48900B, which is basically having possession of a dangerous object on campus. So I use the example of a student having a knife on them, but they're not necessarily brandishing it, but they have it on them. Again, we have interventions and consequences for K through 3 and then 4 through 6. And then 7 through 8, which is the one that I'm going to concentrate on, it's the same, basically the same thing with other things included in it, but there's tier 2 interventions / consequences and tier 3. But a lot of the tier 2 that you would do for this infraction, you would have done for the other infraction as well, which is parent conference, entering it into Aries, making sure that you're giving them due process and, getting written statements. And it could be restorative practices, it could be a 1 to 3 day suspension. You would also have police intervention to come and talk to them, or it might be North Bay Security coming to talk to them. And then tier 3, again, doing the same thing that you would have done in tier 2, but again, you have more at your disposal with regards to referral to SST, counseling, 3 to 5 day suspension, the social probation, and then I'm not going to go through the whole list, but there's a number of different options that the administrator has to choose from.
I think one thing Mike just mentioned is possession versus brandishing.
Yeah.
Brandishing is required recommendation for expulsion. Possession is not, but brandishing is.
Question?
Yeah, sure. And maybe you'll cover it later, so I'll just ask the question, you can answer it. Novato has engaged North Bay Security Services to great advantage. They are not a sworn officer. They don't carry a weapon. They don't carry the authority. They don't apply warrants or arrest warrants. So they don't do any of that. They're a much different kind of capacity and role, and hopefully are, and I believe, engaged in the campus in a much more personal way than our uniformed officers in Nevada, which we count upon to be experts at that role, but North Bay is that interim role. So I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, but I actually don't. What I'm interested in is how you use that range of resources in order to assure safety and the discipline issues that you're facing, because you mentioned that there'll be times when you have to bring in an outside resource because the principal decides, I don't know what the rule is, so maybe you can give us a little information on that.
I know when when it's mandatory to call the police department. So that's when I would definitely call.
And I don't,
Yeah,
so you can help me, yeah.
I'll explain that. So when there's, when somebody's brandishing a knife, when somebody's in possession of an explosive or a firearm, if there was sexual assault or selling of a controlled substance, that we have to contact the police department on. With regards to weapons, the school resource officers, we would always call the school resource officers when there was a weapon on campus that was serious enough to where we would call them in, and it was a discussion. It was an educating the student of why not to bring it to school. Not if it was brandishing, it was a different conversation that was happening, and the police were involved, no question. But there were times where we had students with a dangerous object on them, and I had, at the time it was Officer Wagner, who was our school resource officer. He would come down and talk to the student about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I think what I would also differentiate is that North Bay is more on the restorative practices side. They help us with counseling. They do one-to-one. They do group. They do home visits. They do parent consultation, and they're really supportive in that way, and it's really needed because right now we're down to one SRO. It's just Laura Hauser, and she's fabulous, but she's not going to be. She wouldn't be able to serve the whole district the way when we have two.
So to be clear, if the district decides we need to have somebody do a home visit because of truancy or some decision, that's a school action staffed by school personnel. The person that goes to the front door is not a police officer. It's our security team, and they're unarmed, and it's more like a social visit. I don't know, that's not the right word.
Exactly
but-
social, but.
Yeah, no, but I'm trying to, but it's not a law enforcement
Right.
visit, it's a school personnel visit to the home. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so this brings me to the question that I had earlier. So how are we now as far as in alignment with the school psychologist, the SROs, teachers, parents? Have we brought this forward to them now, or are we waiting for approval from us? And then,
Right.
and then, how are we going to get feedback from them, making sure that everybody is in alignment?
Yeah, so Mike,
In
we
agreement.
had originally planned that Dora would do presentations, but it was the second day of school. And we said, oh, no, that's not going to work for all of the schools. So Mike is going to set up some visitations to the sites and work with the principals to do presentations to the staff, which would include psychs and special ed and counselors. So everybody knows who's doing what and how we're going to proceed.
And I have to ask. I already know the answer, but everything will be, there will be interpreters, and everything will be in Spanish and whatever language.
Well, when we're doing the
Maybe.
parent forums, we will, but not for the staff. The staff
Right,
are
right.
all.
No, I'm just talking about like in communication with all. I just want to make sure everybody's
everything's
everybody's in
in-
communication.
Oh,
everybody's in
oh, it's-
agreement.
Yes, no, it's
that
all
things will-
translated. Yeah.
Things will take place as everybody knows what the role is, and there'll be no stepping on people's foots.
Right, and I think it's a good point that you're reminding us. The community liaisons really need to be involved in the training because they do a lot of outreach and connections with the family. So
Okay, great.
that is really important. So
Great.
thanks.
Oh, and one more thing. I guess, never mind. We're going to talk about the another chart. I have a question about another.
Yeah. Okay, keep going, Mike.
All right. So this exhibit was board approved in March, I believe it was. This is a suspension checklist. So as an administrator, especially if I was a brand new administrator, this would have been invaluable to me. So if I had a situation where a student got into a fight with somebody and I'm going to suspend them, I can use this checklist to go down and just make sure that I'm covering everything that I need to cover before I suspend that student. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of them is if a student is special ed, I have to make sure that I'm doing certain things with a student that has an IEP or a student that has a 504 plan. So this is invaluable for administrators to have to be able to check through. And then the other exhibit that was approved by you was the suspension form. So this is the new suspension form that the administrators are using. It is a little bit more detailed, a little bit more easy to read than what Aries produces, what we used to use. So right now they are in the process of using these when suspending a student. Yeah.
Trustee Gaston, go ahead.
So you threw a curveball at me. So there was a form in Aries that we were using. Can they change their template to match ours?
So that's a great question. So I have been in communication with IT and they have been working on it. The tough part is Aries doesn't like this format.
Okay.
And Aries just likes text boxes. And so Stella in IT has been working at this for a long time to try and get it so that it will just pop up when they're in Aries and they're doing discipline, so that this will print out as the letter that goes home to the parent. But right now, it's something that the administrators are just having to fill out separate from Aries. They're still filling out the Aries assertive discipline. Everything is like normal. They're just not printing out the Aries letter that normally prints out. They're using this.
Okay, and you unintentionally answered my follow-up question, was making sure that the data, because I know we need to track it. So it's putting that data in, which it sounds like it takes the data you're putting in and does the letter, but instead of us, we have to do a separate
Yeah, that's
step.
correct.
Got
That's
it,
correct.
thank you.
Well, I'll just comment and say that I think we got to get that to be a single step,
Yeah.
one way or the other. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to work that out. All right, next then.
Just
I
question.
think that was it. Yep.
Yeah.
Question, Trustee Aguilar?
Okay, thank you. For the one chart, behavior management cheat chart. I- oh, it's in the, it's this one.
Oh, in the document?
Oh, yeah, the cheat chart. The colorful one.
Yeah, but the
Yeah, it's just, this is so needed. It's just wonderful, and it's so clear, and I'm just so happy that we have this. I do have a couple questions on it, though, just to clarify for me. When it talks about physical contact on underneath on the minor problem is the physical contact and aggression, and then on the more of a major problem you have on the bottom it talks about the just physical aggression. So my question would be for the, let's say, sexual contact, which hopefully never happens, but I don't see that anywhere in the major problem behavior or in any both of the charts. Where would that fall under?
That would be physical contact aggression.
Okay, so maybe I missed it because I don't see sexual in here.
No, we don't have that word in there, but that's where it falls. Aggressive physical contact.
And we don't need to add it?
We don't, do you want to add it?
It's just,
We can talk to Dora about that.
yeah, I mean, it's clear, but since we're looking at it now, we're approving it, just that. And then my second question would be, if it's minor aggression, minor problem, it would just be physical contact, right? The student engages in non-serious but inappropriate physical contact. And it would have to be aggression. I'm just seeing a little bit of an overlap between the word aggression on both, between minor problem behavior and the major problem behavior. So that could just be my background calling, pointing that out. And my third question would be under minor problem behavior, it says other. I'm just a little bit worried about that, to be honest. I see what it means, anything that is any other minor problem that is not mentioned. And that's could be a little bit not so clear as far as, because everything else is so clear. And so I guess my question is this a living document that we would add to the other?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Because if it was not a living document, then I would be worried about having that category there. It's kind of like having a miscellaneous drawer. It's always messy. You never know what's in the drawer. So, okay.
Yeah,
Just wanted
this
to
isn't
bring
going to
those
be a
up.
living document. We're going to try this out. But I
Perfect.
wanted to
Oops,
make
sorry.
sure that the board approved it and saw it and gave comment prior to getting out to the sites.
Perfect. Oh, I'm just so happy with this.
Good.
And so if we could just, if you can just bring those items to whoever you need to bring it and just,
Yeah, the group, Mike will continue to work with the
Great.
group and talk about if there are suggestions that they have as they're starting to implement it.
wonderful. Thank you.
Go ahead, Trustee Jacobson. And then
Yeah.
we'll go with Trustee Milrick.
I just wondered if we have thought about sort of like a bigger picture infrastructure for how do we make sure that our administrators are doing the things that we want them to with these set of rules, because there is a lot of ambiguity. And so what's the oversight?
Well, Mike will be monitoring with because everything will come to him.
Okay.
But he will be monitoring what's occurring at the schools, and we'll be talking about it in principal meetings to try to see what are the patterns that we see and what are the level of use of the document. And actually what was really important to both Mike and me as we did expulsions this last year is the pattern of documentation and who was documenting and who wasn't, and where was it documented, where wasn't, and in areas there were how many sections. And it was like every time we'd get one, we'd go, oh my goodness. And that's when we knew that we had to have the consistency. So Mike will be overseeing that.
And can I just ask that we keep a lens on how different sites are managing these things to make sure that they're how we want them to be and consistent, but in a good way.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Trustee Miller, and then it was Trustee Gasson.
Yeah, sure. 2 points. One is, I don't see a conversation about the issues with cyber bullying, cyber attack. And a bunch of that happens off campus, and there are, people take a photograph, and the next thing you know, somebody shared a photograph, and mom and dad are not only nuts, but things get out of hand very fast. I think that's what's unique about it, how fast it spreads and how much it's out of the vision of our administrations and the school leaders. It happens in the community. Have you figured out the solution to this problem? I'm sort of looking.
That'd be great if we did. I think what we're trying to do, in fact, we have an issue at one of our middle schools right now, that students themselves are posting photos of other students and then writing very disparaging things. So that would come under our bullying policy, our discipline policy. And because it is affecting a school situation, we can take action on the discipline.
Okay.
Because it comes back to school. They said, oh, Derek said that about me, and Derek says Jan said that about me. You're right. Yes, you did. And so we have authorization to act on that. So we would apply it to whatever category of ed code or whatever category of board policy.
Okay, so we at least have thought about it, and
Yeah.
it's a tough problem. I appreciate. And
Our staffs have been really dealing with that a lot.
that's what I
Yeah.
sort of hear, but
Yeah.
so this is supposed to help, and this document describes what do we do if something goes wrong, but I know, under Jan's leadership, that really we're trying to make behavior changes by praising kids for when they do something right.
Right.
And that sort of isn't even on this piece of paper, but I know that's the focus of the way this district is being run, and I hear it in principals' voices, I hear it in teachers' voices, and I hear it in the district office. So, Mike, I don't know how you take that good work and then turn it into something that's sort of this is the minimum you have to do to be doing your job.
That's the PBIS that's coming, Positive Behavior Intervention.
Oh, okay.
So that's what the training is
We've actually
starting.
formalized that in some way.
And that's
K-12.
K-12.
Yeah,
Yeah,
K-12.
TK-12.
Oh, yeah, no, the little kids are no better than the high school kids, no.
Yeah, it's going in tandem, so.
Okay, thank you for responding to those questions. And I appreciate the cyber concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I appreciate you
out-
raising it.
Yeah, out of hand, in society, not just in
Right.
Novato.
So Trustee Gasson.
And I think also that we all, as parents, sign an agreement or a technology use document or something at the start of the year. Students are also, so I think it also falls under the technology violation category, I would imagine.
So your kids are using cell phones to do what?
They're following the policy.
Oh, they're following the policy.
That actually says that of appropriate or correct use of technology, so.
Yeah.
So a couple things, and actually, because we were on a roll, I forgot to say how much I appreciate that this is all here, and I can only imagine how much work it was, and I'm just so excited that we have something consistent across our district to work from. So I appreciate all of the time and effort and everyone that was working on it too, because everyone has different levels of kids that they're interacting with, and so different things surface. Trustee Jacobson said something that triggered a thought for myself. I don't remember exactly how he said it, but having a document or something so that each of the sites know exactly what steps that they're supposed to take. Because some people use forms, or some people were using Aries, or not. Just so we have a consistent that this all needs to go into Aries, and this is what you do, X, Y, and Z. They notify you. Actually, that was another thing, that they notify the district office that there was a fight or an incident. So I just recognized all of a sudden that, as long as there's a checklist or something so people know exactly, okay, I do this first, I do this next. If it's this level, it goes to the district office, or it always goes to whatever, that we're all on the same page for that. I agree with Trustee Aguila that I think we should actually reference sexual assault. It's in some of the other sections, so I think it is physical contact, but I think that given that there's identified sections within here that specifically highlight, I think it would be important to include that somewhere.
I
within
just
this
don't
little-
think we put it on this, but we do have it in the ed code.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
it
in
is,
the
that's
ed
what I'm
code,
saying.
But
It
it's
is-
just not on this
Yeah.
chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I saw it in the document itself, and that was what I was doing when you were talking. I went back to say, do we actually call it? And we do call it that in the agreement. A couple of just small things that I had mentioned to Dr. Derby earlier. In terms of getting this out to the community, I was wondering if maybe we put it on the documents when we go into areas as parents and we sign off on all the different things. I don't, yeah, well, there's that, and then there's we've read, I didn't read internet use, whatever, all that. So maybe this could fit in there so parents know what the practice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what she was suggesting earlier, and that's what we talked about, is putting the parent guide at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge you, Diane, because this is a result, what's happened now is a result of what you surfaced over a year ago when I first arrived. So here we are. It took us a year, but here we are.
I'm excited. I mean, this is great. All good moving forward. The one other little thing I just, for staff, the policies that this aligns to, that I understand it's going to be for 5144 discipline. Some of the wording in the existing policy references site level discipline policies, or
We'll change that one.
and so
yeah.
just getting an alignment with that, that it's a unified, we are unified, and this is a district.
What Diane is referring to is our board policy says sites can decide what they want to do versus following this document.
And that's it, and thank you.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, we got a couple more questions from trustee Jacobson and then trustee Aguila, and then we'll see if we can.
I'm wondering if you could answer a philosophy question for me. Sorry. Well, so the 45 days of social probation. So I know that sometimes there are cases where students are acting out and maybe sports or their extracurriculars are the only place that they're actually plugged in. So how are we serving ourselves and our students in taking that away?
Those are exactly the questions that they asked at Dora Dome's presentation to the coaches. You are talking just like the coaches did the other night. We're trying this now to see if it's a preventative measure and hoping that they're not going to be vaping and using and that the sports mean enough to them that they're not going to do it. We're going to give it a shot. So we're going to try it and then see how it goes. Because the coaches were asking, well, can they just watch practice or can they just be part of something? And can they? And they were asking all those questions. We're going to try this as it is and then make adjustments. That's the goal. That's the goal.
So if I can just interrupt, as you were asking that question, I looked over at Jen Larson because this came up at another meeting as well. So I'm going to let you.
Yeah, and I'll add to it. The 45 days is an up to, that's a limit. And what we talked a lot about was it would be very rare for someone to be on social probation. Some of what you're referring to is also about the sports handbook, athletics handbook, where we have some specific days that are aligned with alcohol and drug use. This is more of an option that is in lieu of suspension. And it would be determined based on the incident. But again, that is an up to, that is not a 45 days. It could be a week, it could be, yes.
Yeah, let's add that.
We did talk about changing that language. We want to make sure that it is a maximum of 45 days.
Trustee Aguila, trustee Jacobson, were you done? Okay, trustee Aguila, and then trustee Miller's got a question.
Yeah. I just have a silly question as far as where since we're talking about behavior and a lot of this behavior is active behavior, and so I was wondering about where would, and the audience, this chart is for teachers or school staff mostly, where would depression, sadness, towards suicide, where would that fall in here?
Well, we wouldn't be suspending kids. We would be recommending them for we're starting our wellness hubs.
Right.
And we would be doing recommendations for resources and support systems.
And so that would not, that this chart is not meant for
Meant for
that.
that, no. There's some wellness things that are going to be developed and guidelines for wellness, because we are trying to separate that.
Yeah.
Depression and.
I just don't want to miss it.
Yeah, no, this doesn't go here. That doesn't go here.
But we do have something, or don't we have something that, that tells us tells the staff
Yeah,
what to do?
there's risk assessment behaviors
Yeah.
that, surveys that we do for the kids to determine what.
Surveys, okay. I'm just so thrilled for this, and this
Well,
is
good.
going to be like in this parent manual or wherever it's going to end up, and I just want to make sure that we don't forget there's the other issue of behavior where there's sadness to depression to suicide, and we've had cases where the students are have helped other students and prevented things happening because people were aware of the behavior of being
Right,
sad towards depression, and so
No, absolutely. It's extremely important, especially now. It's
Yeah.
gotten more,
Right.
even more important. So, but it doesn't go in the discipline matrix. It would go in our wellness interventions, wellness
Okay.
prevention, wellness resources.
but it's there, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
just want to make sure
definitely.
because
Yeah,
we
definitely.
haven't ignored those
Yeah,
behaviors.
no.
Okay.
No, we
Okay,
wouldn't do that.
Thank you.
I think Ross's name.
Trustee Milrick.
Thank you for bringing up the wellness issue. Thanks. As we look at this, and we're talking about the child who is in fact misbehaving, I mean, we're sort of having that dialogue. But in a classroom of 30 students, 29 of those students are impacted by the behavior of one student. And those students and the teacher, and the ability for the instructor or principal or whoever at what level this is happening's ability to deliver a healthy, effective educational experience and social program depends upon the teacher's ability to implement discipline against an offender, or the assistant principal who then has to step in and provide the backup to make sure that discipline started is discipline completed. And so in that case, there's 29 students that are learning a lesson as they watch one student deal with a discipline issue. And we need to make sure as we do this, and I think we are, that the lessons we're teaching those other 29 students is the world's a fair place. Their time is valued. They get an education, and in a way that is respectful of the student who is maybe having some issue at home, but we have to make sure, and I think we are, that the rest of the students in that classroom are part of our calculus, and if a student threatens somebody and it's repeated, the rest of the students deserve us to remove the threat. So there'll be times when it seems harsh looking at the one student, but we have a whole community to operate in. This balance is hard, I guess, is what,
Yeah.
I know it's
Well,
hard. I've
here's what
heard
I'm-
this story from you, Dr. Derby,
Yeah.
more than one time.
Right. One thing that I think has been a wonderful addition to the district is the schools that have established reset rooms. So when there is a student escalating, they can take a break and they can go to this reset room. And so everyone calls it something a little different. Rancho is the Eagle's Nest. I mean, they're all different names. But it has the same purpose. I need to take a break. I need to calm down. I need to reset in order to be able to come back to class, so it's not disrupting the other 29 kids. So when you're on campus, Ross, I would encourage you to go see the reset rooms, because they're really doing the job, and the kids feel like they have a safe place to go because they need a break.
And safe for the 29?
Yeah,
Safe for the one, and
Right.
safe for the 29, so everybody can make
exactly.
a progress that day as they are growing up in this community. Thank you
Right.
very much. I'll do exactly that. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we're
Sorry,
going
I
to
have one last
get.
question.
No, that's fine. And we're going to, Trustee Jacobs got a comment, and then I'm going to kind of recap a little bit, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead.
Do you think we could get a synopsis of PBIS at some point when that information goes out to the staff too.
When, well, we have our first training in September. Were you planning on doing any kind of board report? I think it would be really important for us to do a board presentation. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. That's a good suggestion. Okay, Ellen, we've got something for our board report. Okay, that's a good suggestion. Julie?
Okay, so our goal is to adopt the current code of conduct and the discipline intervention matrix, so we can authorize staff to begin using it, which in a way is going to be, I think, beta testing, and in no way when we authorize this, assuming we will, is it written in stone and isn't going to be an ongoing, I'm not going to call it a living document as much as it's just something that ought to be open to improvement whenever necessary. So just so I've got some clarity on a public, make sure I understood some of the things we talked about at the table. I know that many of you have submitted everything from typo suggestions and some other clarifications, which we appreciate. I know that talked about that earlier. But to start out, I think a lot of the things Trustee Millick you were talking about at the end is actually embedded in the philosophy statement, so that's a good place to go if you think anything could be improved there. But as far as that producing an environment for education that safely respects and acknowledges everyone else's time, I think we got that in there. I think that this is in no particular order, but I'm gonna emphasize some tech connectivity and the ability to query reports and to have these things, either it's all in areas or there's some cross index at some point, and it's just time for public education to get into the 21st century, and it's just something we have to, spend resources and time on. But it's we're just going to be tying one arm behind our people's back by having this go here, go there, do it by hand, or that's the form to use, but it's not quite right. Let's work on that as a constant basis. I think we're going to have a no contact contract. So we're going to change fight to contact, I think, but I'm not sure if that's if that example is in here. I don't remember seeing it, but I didn't look for it either. Trustee Miller brought up something about group goal as far as bad behavior coming from a group, and I think what we established there is we can only deal with these kids on an individual basis, but would it be appropriate to make some awareness in there that administrators, if they have a sense that this is I like the way that Trustee Miller called it a group goal, which is 5 kids have decided to team up on one individual or to rob the PE lockers or whatever it is, that we somehow can connect the individual students into a single entity based on this one goal. I didn't see that in there, but.
Well, it's not probably written that way, but that's exactly what Bill Welch and his team does. When we've got a group of kids that is doing something together, that group of kids then does a 6 to 8 week session with Jim Shirt. It seems to be doing the most of those. And are there others? Are the other teams doing what Jim does?
Other
with
teams?
Counseling? Like, I know what we did at San Jose with the kids that I was dealing with.
Right. We did them at Sinaloa as well.
And you did, yeah.
Called The Turn is the
Right,
name of the
yeah.
program that Jim came in and did.
So there is that intervention.
I'm
And
sorry?
Michael Pritchard came out and worked in a group of people that seemed to have the same behavior as well.
Okay, so that seems satisfactory. But I'm not sure it's in there yet.
Is it in there?
It's not in
Is
here.
it in here? So
Where
where would you want it?
I'll send you an email.
Okay.
So we're going to figure that out, okay? The other thing that came up, we were talking about what I would describe as outside resources that had to do with our security company, and wouldn't want funding authorization to be a deterrent for an administrator to say, well, that guy costs money, these guys take up time. So how do we address authorization for spending money?
The board authorizes his contract annually,
Mm-hmm.
and we bring the contract that we think that aligns with what we need, and that's where you would have your
Okay, so then, so essentially, our administrators aren't going to be deterred
No.
by consciousness
Not at all.
around there, and they'll have a full understanding of what the security services goals and are as part
Very
of it. So
clear.
I'm not sure that's in here, to be honest, but I'll, you know, I just thought that would be something to think about. I think, go ahead, Trustee.
I didn't say it earlier, but I think that we refer to police in here, but we don't necessarily refer to however we want to, the security team or something. So maybe that's where it become, you know, there is a difference between having the police called and the security team. So maybe that's,
We might add something in the philosophy statement right at the beginning, so it's real clear.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that our administrators understand what services are available to them.
They
and that
really do.
and that
They
the-
use North Bay.
The last thing I want to be,
Tremendously.
okay, good.
Yeah.
And, all right. So then there's, I think there's some agreement to make sure we call out sexual harassment and,
Yeah, I got that one.
and then we're going to change the wording on 45 day to up to 45 days. And then we have, there was talk about an accountability monitoring of the consistency of use of our administrators. So I don't know how we're going to do that, but essentially you described a situation where I almost see myself doing, you know, like you go in, you start to look what managers have written about progress and things along those lines, and it's all over the map. So you're spending all your time trying to collate that into something that makes sense. So I don't know what that is yet, but I think it would be important to you to have that as simple as possible. Maybe that goes back to the technology thing, but
It does go back to the technology, because if they're reporting on the same forms and they know what they're supposed to be reporting on, then Mike can easily look at those and really do some group work, because he'll be meeting with the assistant principals this year instead of me, and that will be his work to really talk about the consistency. I feel really good about that.
I think that'll be important in the long run to be able to access records on a student going back so long and to be able to see it and find it, you know.
A well-designed form is also a well-designed database, and all of a sudden you can use data tools to find problems that you would have missed otherwise. So, yep.
So bring us back a proposal for a software application or something that's going to work well.
Work with IT.
So then we had, I think we talked a little bit about, we wanted to make sure this covered cyber activities, and I think it did.
Yeah.
You guys are comfortable with the wording on that. The alignment of the wording around site policies versus district policies, I think,
We have a
I'll let
policy change.
it's wording, and that doesn't mean that you get to do what you want.
Right.
In fact, we want to make sure we're stopping that. So that's kind of what I had. I'll put that in a list together, but is there anybody, did we miss anything that was like super important? And you're certainly welcome to add going forward. But our goal tonight would be to adopt it as is, and then I'm sure there'll be some clerical and some cleanup that we talked about, and then it's going to be given to our administrators to implement. So, we good?
So is it coming back, or are we
It's
just
not coming. It
coming
won't come back. I think you suggested you would bring it back in
the
another
spring.
future board report.
In the spring, to say, how
Okay.
did it go? What was it like? What did we change? What are our recommendations going forward?
Yeah.
So
By then, we'll have the wellness guidelines up and running too, Maria, and then you'll see both.
yeah, and I think it's a significant sample of time has to go by so that we can have a true trial on it.
I'll make a motion, and
I appreciate that. So anyone else? Seconded by Trustee Gasson. Thank you. So all those in favor? I have 6 affirmative and 1 absent. So good luck, and we did it. And thanks to everybody and the hard work they put into this, as well as Door to Dome. Okay, we have our next item.
Jen is coming up. Today, she is the assistant superintendent.
Today, she's the assistant
Yes,
superintendent.
thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, trustees and Superintendent Derby. I also want to just a quick thank you to Mike Saizi. We've talked for years about how critical the student services role is. So to have somebody back in this role and be the point person on this is going to really be the key to bringing the consistency back that we've all been looking for. So thank you to the board for supporting that. And thank you for Mike to stepping into that position. I cannot imagine a better person to take on that role.
There
So
isn't one.
thank you. So I am here tonight to do a first reading of a new board policy for NUSD, that is 5148.3, preschool and early childhood education. On your board cover, you're going to notice that there is the CSBA line around what the change was. Keep in mind, though, that's the change that was made between the last updated version and the most recent one in 2021. But for us in Nevada, we've never had one to begin with. So we need to look at this policy as a whole picture, as something new to NUSD, and keep in mind that we're adopting a policy around preschool and early education because we are moving towards universal PK and universal TK. This is very much a work in progress. The team has started meeting, but the focus has really been around transitional kindergarten and getting our 4-year-olds into school. And over the next year, we're going to be working towards our preschool partners and what that partnership and oversight looks like. One of the things that we most appreciate about this policy is outlining what components should be a part of our agreements with any of our state preschool programs. At this point, we partner with North Bay Children's Center. We have 2 campuses, one at Hamilton, one at Lew Sutton. We don't anticipate any change in that, and we anticipate to continue to work with partners in the community rather than absorb preschool ourselves. And so this document really helps us in moving forward with those community partners as we establish our agreements and our MOUs about how we're going to operate once universal pre-K expands. So with that, if there's any questions, and I'm also going to say Lois and I work closely on this because of the business aspect and the contracts between us and our partners in preschools. So if there's any technical questions, I may be looking to you, Lois.
All right, Trustee Miller, do you have a question? And
The world before pre-TK, technical kindergarten, or whatever that's, transitional kindergarten.
Transitional kindergarten.
I thought they were studying computers, but I'm. So before that, in Nevada, maybe in other towns as well, but in Nevada, we had a lot of people who ran schools that were targeted at either in their home or in a facility, Miss Sandy's, which is a bigger facility, that served that population pretty much up to that age group. So now we are moving, the public monies are being used to do pre-K,
TK.
TK,
Yep.
pardon me. You sure it's not technical kindergarten? I always thought so. How, and we clearly want our other business partners to serve that part of the population to be successful in their business enterprises, but we're starting to cross over in areas that maybe they had revenue sources that they were counting on. And then you've named a couple specifically as opposed to every business in Nevada that serves that population. How does that business model work? How are they receiving the fact that boundary between public schools and their services is changing?
Right. So there are a number of private daycare and preschools in our community, and we would want them to
Lucky
continue
us.
to,
Yeah.
yes, and we would want them to continue to thrive. What this program is designed to do is for those students who don't have resources to participate in a preschool program, not necessarily daycare, that's a separate program, and we have daycare partnerships as well. But for families of 3 and 4-year-olds who have chosen to not be in an NUSD transitional kindergarten class, either because their age hasn't met that yet, or because they've chosen that isn't the right time for their student to transition into an elementary school campus, but don't have the resources for one of our private schools. This allows for those entities to have funding to support students to ensure that all 3 and 4 years have access to preschool. So our hope is to continue to work with our partners, and for those organizations like our partners that we are currently working with who have the foundation and the infrastructure to support that kind of funding, to make sure that we are offering that as an option when our students come in. So really what we're looking at is building a design where families in Nevada know that there are many options in our community, and we just want to make sure that they know how to access each one of those and they have the support they need to make the decision that's best for their group.
So it sounds like you're working hard to not put your finger on the scale for one
No.
vendor or another, or one solution or another.
Nope.
You're bringing, and so do they have access to economic resources that we would that they would get, the fees would be paid for through
Yes.
state money that we administer?
And so part of that is outlined in here for 3-year and 4-year-old programs. Eligibility in one of those programs, it's called a state preschool program. 2 of the 3, someone who is already a current recipient in some other way or another family member, they have income eligibility, they're homeless, or a child who is a recipient of Child Protective Services.
Oh, okay, so there's a criteria, not our criteria, a state criteria that says
State
you check
defined.
one of these boxes and we'll help you with your family situation.
Yep,
Okay.
it is a state-designed funding system.
Okay, thank you very much. It's not NUSD imposing this. It's we're bringing money, state monies to bear to solve problems in Nevada when we just happen to be the conduit.
And part of the decision-making for us that we have had discussions around prior is knowing that we will be mandated to provide services in preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds moving forward. Is that something that we as a school district are prepared and have a desire to take on, or do we want to continue to have that be a partnership in our community? And at this point, we're continuing with our partnerships in the community while emphasizing and helping to build our TK program, which we already have, to be a little bit more focused on early childhood rather than a TKK transition into elementary school. So really an early education
So
program.
the decision this organization is making is to say, let's keep relying on the providers in our community who have demonstrated they can do this well. Let's continue to support them.
Yes, using this policy to help us guide what our oversight and our partnership needs to look like with this new policy coming our way.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, no, that was a good conversation. This 20 years has been going on. It's sort of interesting how it's coming to what it is. But Trustee Gasson, go ahead.
So I don't know if this was specifically what you were also getting to, or questioning, but one of the things I do know is some of the facilities that used to take kids in the older when you're little, they're just taking smaller kids now or younger kids, like infant up to, they've just reduced, if they had a span up to 4-year-olds or 5-year-old class, they've just changed their programs to being reduced because they know that there was going to be kids that would be going to public school systems and stuff. So balancing out that concern of not wanting to put small daycare facilities or preschools, so that's how they're adjusting to that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, question, Trustee Gila.
Just a quick question. So in the first page, last paragraph, when it mentions, throughout the, right here, through the whole thing, it talks about planning, development planning council, and how the superintendent or the designee shall collaborate. Development planning council, already know what that is, and
No, so we do have a preschool consortium with Marin County, and Marin County Office of Education is very involved in that. But we also we started our Universal PK-TK committee last year, and that's where we started getting stakeholder involvement. But it really was focused very primarily on what is TK going to look like here. As we move forward, this very much is a planning year. And so we shared the dates around TK, but as you know, each year we roll out a longer window in which students are eligible for TK in our schools, which then also changes the pre-K. So as that rolls out, we will have a team that is working towards what our plans look like. And what we wanted as a document to help guide what we are doing in those committee meetings to make sure that in the end we have a guidebook that is shared between the values of NUSD and those community partners that we are supporting in the preschools. So we would want, for example, and I'm going to use North Bay again because that is who we currently work with, we would want their programs to not just mirror but also partner with our TK programs so that as students are moving up into our schools, they're prepared for what NUSD's plans and values would be.
so the council is NUSD or MCOE? I'm still not clear.
It's a county.
So MCOE. So it's MCOE.
Yeah, so that is the county-wide. We have our own committee that will be working with our internal partners,
Yeah.
but all of that comes from that consortium.
And some organizations that you mentioned here too could be like The YMCA or the,
Head
what-
Start,
Yeah.
Community Action, Marin.
Okay. All right.
Yep,
All right. Thank you.
absolutely.
I just wanted to know
Yeah.
what council,
Yeah.
who was the council?
Okay, so this is the recommendation is to approve the current policy as a first reading. And we're going to keep it as a first reading, and maybe we'll get some input from the partners out there, but go ahead.
And I would, and I would ask if we could bring it back on consent unless there are any comments or changes that come up between now and our next board meeting.
Not, that's fine. This gives an opportunity for the public of interest to make comments before we adopt it officially on on a future consent agenda. So I think that's okay.
A
Okay.
second?
I have a first. Do I have a second? Okay, Maria is our second on adoption of this first reading. All those in favor? 6 yes, 1 absent, so we will move it ahead.
Thank you.
Next is the, what is next? It's the, that's it.
That's it, that was the regs.
No, we have the openers. Yeah, we have the openers. So we did, just for clarity for the board, we adopted the policy along with the administrative rules and regulations. Okay, all right. So now it's time for the approval of the Nevada Unified School District initial proposal for negotiations 2022-23. And Franny Whitcomb is going to present.
Good evening, everybody. So you did receive and accept NFT's reopeners back in June. This is my understanding. And so now we're bringing the district's proposals for reopeners to you guys to approve tonight, which of course includes compensation and benefits, and then as the contract provides for up to 2 additional articles. So we're bringing forward Article 8, professional responsibility, and Article 19, allowance, and then the exhibits that are related to those above articles.
This will be the board's initial proposal for negotiations, help get the ball rolling as soon as possible. So any questions or comments on these openers, these articles?
I'll move this as an item if you're ready.
Right, so I have a motion and a second. I'm going to, Trustee Jacobson, the second, and I'll call the question unless there's any comments.
Okay.
All right, then I've got a comment. And my comment is that we look forward to working with all of our bargaining units and to valuing the work that they do and to compensating them to the best of our ability. So I think we're all looking forward to that. All those in favor? 6 affirmative and 1 absent. So our proposal will move forward.
Thank you very much.
And we are about to move on to item 15. I just want to remind everybody, and I'm serious about this, think about your family. Do not text and drive. We are adjourned.